All right, folks, Jeff finally got a memorable URL. It's jeffsawesomepods.com. His two main shows are going strong. Shattered Worlds RPG is an actual play pod featuring spaceships, magic, zombies, and, yes, robots. And Foolish Wits is a weekly chat show about writing, Shakespeare, daily nonsense, and comedy. Find all the info you need at his sweet-ass new URL, jeffsawesomepods.com.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Some Spoiled, covering A Song of Ice and Fire 2, The Co-Host Switcheroo, the Rereading, Return to Westeros, HBO Spoiler Edition, Uncut, Uncensored, and Too Hot for TV, bringing you the greatest hits, etc., etc. We are doing chapters 60, 61, and 62. Sansa, Tyrion, and Sansa again. In these chapters, the battle is won, but no thanks to fucking Cersei. Welcome to Some Spoiled.
Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
I am the king!
Fuck the king.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
What are you doing over there?
Opening my book.
Clicking, clacking, smacking.
Opening my book. Do you mind? Do you mind?
I'm about to ask your book that. So I just really out of the gate, you know, guys, how I do. I talk about the thing that I just want to talk about right away, usually, and I want to talk about the scene between Sansa and the Hound because it's been building a little bit. Where I told you that people have a weird ship for the two of them, and I just want, we won't go into it totally, but just give me like a brief impression of what you felt reading that section.
I was thinking about the scene in the show, and it's the same scene. The tone is a little bit different in the book. In the book, there's a moment where she feels it too, where you're worried like he's going to try to make like a romantic move or a sexual move. Like just for a second being a little concerned. My concern was that the book was going to go there in a way that the show didn't.
Gotcha.
And so I was kind of holding my breath because I'm really not interested in that at all, being a part of the story. Yeah. And because I'm aware of the ship, a part of my brain was like, okay, is there more in the book? And that's kind of what people are going on. You know, is that part of what's behind the ship or whatever? But thankfully, it does not go that way at all.
Yeah.
And he just ends up leaving without her. It's different, too, because it feels like in the show, because they didn't, I don't think they did the bit where it even, like, throws her like down on the bed and all that, like puts a knife to her throat. Like none of that's in the show, I don't think. So
I honestly don't remember.
If I remember right, which I might not be, but if I remember right, the tension in that scene is him really trying to convince her to leave with him, and her being afraid to go. But in the book, it's very different. You know, he's got a knife to her throat. He's way drunker here than I remember him being.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, he had been drinking in the show by this point, but this feels like he was way drunker. And her singing to him.
Oh my god, that was so weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. I didn't love it. You know, I mean, it's whatever. It was not like a high point for me though. And quite frankly, I was glad when it was over. But yeah, the whole, like, I told you were going to sing, I was going to make you sing for me. I don't know. Like, I'm wondering, like, when this was written, I guess, as a writer, you're trying to, you want your readers to be kind of, not feel like they're on solid ground and that anything could happen. And your fear for her in this moment, I guess, makes for good reading. If, if that's what you're into.
Keywords, yes.
But yeah, it's, like I said, I was glad when it was over.
Yeah, it's, I wanted to get here because of how it was done in the show. I felt like I remember, and like I said, I don't remember, like, the specific details, but I remember feeling a lot less creeped out by it in the show than I was reading it. Mm-hmm. And, I think a lot of that is being in Sansa's head and just everything that she has already been told could happen to her that day. And, the unexpectedness of him being there and everything. The show goes for, like, little shocking moments like that don't happen in the book. And it'll feel kind of like, well, of course they're going to do the most because they're the show. But having somebody who just is, like, in her bed already and waiting for her and drunk, like, it's not that George R. R. Martin doesn't do this shit, but it feels a little bit like slasher movie in a way that he doesn't often really do. You know what I mean? Probably feels that way because of Sansa being the young ingenue. And I just, like, I feel like what happens in the scene, while I can understand her fear of what could go on, I was definitely creeped out, but in the end, I didn't feel like it had actually been sexual for him at all. I thought it was going to be, but then when it was over, I was like, oh, wait, I think I misjudged what was actually happening here. And then when I saw all the people who were, like, actually shipping the two of them and illustrated this moment between the two, and I'm definitely going to be using one of those illustrations for this show art, by the way.
So people do use this moment with them as part,
this one specifically,
really, as part of what could have been and should have been but never was. Huh, that's weird.
And it's not even like, I don't know, it's not even should have been. It's this is the thing with ships. Well, be just people spinning wildly out in just a direction that catches their fancy.
Yeah, like when I say could have been, should have been, and would have been is just sort of an all catch for the the variation in people's ships. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I by no means am, saying that this is what should have been. Like, yeah, I don't think this is what should have been.
Oh, I know you're not, yeah. But I'm saying, like, I'm not sure that they would even say it should.
Yeah, I don't know if people would say that this is what should have been. Maybe what they would have liked to have seen is fairer. I don't know. Would they be open to seeing? See, I don't know, because then you're getting into, like, defining exactly what a ship is, and that seems to be a very muddy.
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, not knowing what people are actually wanting, and I don't get into fandom stuff too much in terms of this sort of thing. Like, shipping people doesn't happen for me that often. I'm not that invested in a lot of, like, romantic relationships in things, and because usually they're not well done, so I just sort of, that part of me is, like, shut off unless an author really does an amazing job. But it just is so there. It feels like people are trying to overlook so much of Sandor's behavior and make him, like, this misunderstood big softy in a weird way that I'm like, look, maybe that is, like, a segment of who he is, but also he's literally saying that he loves killing people so much. And we can't just pretend he never said that or act like he's just saying shit, but he doesn't mean it. So that's always the part that gets weird for me as well, is, like, assigning intent to characters that were not in their POV. So you can't just throw out a whole section of their personality because it doesn't align with what you want.
I feel like, I feel two things actually come to mind immediately. I feel like there are people who probably would say, well, people ship Jaime in various characters, and he likes to kill people too. Which is, again, like, I'm not particularly shipping Jaime with anybody. I know there are a lot of people that liked him with Brienne and, you know. But I wonder if, like, if people feel like, if characters like Clegane, for instance, who are so physically unappealing, you know, like a point is made that they're not attractive and that they're scarred and disfigured and all this other jazz, right?
Right.
And that, you know, you put someone like Jaime, who is world famous for being hot as fuck, you know, and likes to kill people as much as, you know, Sandor seems to enjoy killing people.
Sure.
You know, but because I think they're both terrible people and don't really want to see them, they don't deserve any kind of happiness.
Well, shit.
Or,
okay.
you know, they don't, or at least not with anybody that I've met so far. But yeah, I just wonder if there's something about the Hound's character being just presented as being, like, monstrous, you know, inside and out. And then people who see, like, his trauma from when he was a kid and how he was disfigured by his older brother, and then see him have this sort of soft spot for Sansa, even though it's expressed in, I think, really cruel ways.
Yeah.
But then, you know, all you gotta do is, like, a little glimmer of a soft spot, and then people are just like, oh, I can fix him. You don't know the real him. You know? You know what I mean? That thing that we do.
That's what I think it is for me that is so, makes me so creeped out by it. Because, you know, talking about Jaime being, like, also liking to kill people. But if people are shipping him with somebody who also maybe doesn't like to kill people, but does like sword fight, it feels like there's an alignment there. Sansa is so averse to everything that Sandor claims to be about that it feels like if you're shipping them, you're like actively wanting her to be in a position of not enjoying the situation, which I find like just so questionable, you know? But it's all, shipping is just a weird thing. I just had to bring it up because it's such a thing. I just can't emphasize enough how much art I have come across of this moment when I have been looking for any image of Sansa or Sandor. It's like the majority of what I find is this moment, and it just
that's very weird.
Tiresome.
I wonder. Yeah, I'm sure somebody with more degrees than I'll ever have could really dig into that. What is the obsession with, you know, pairing in your imagination a middle-aged man and a 13-year-old little girl, and having the man be simultaneously her protector but also her tormentor, and this idea that somehow she can soften him, and, you know, through her he can access some lost parts of himself. The parts of him that used to believe in knights and, you know, used to believe in, you know, honor and, you know, all that shit. You know, it just there's a lot of fucking shit going on. Need to do some shadow work or something. I don't know.
Oh, that's funny. Anyway, all right. So let's back it up. Let's talk about the first of these 3 chapters. We are still in the Maegor's holdfast with Cersei, who is really like drinking quite a lot. I really love at one point she tells this boy who's trying to refill her goblet, "No, I need a clear head," and then like 5 minutes later grabs a flagon from somebody passing by and just pours herself another glass. Like, it's unclear for me if she changed her mind actively or if she just forgot she said that shit and just immediately moved on to her. But she is this is the part that you actually mentioned in the last episode of coverage, that she says you're going to be in for a bit of a raping.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing is essentially her doing some, like, as she thinks of it, I'm sure, some real straight talk from a woman to a girl kind of thing. A woman to somebody who is allegedly a woman because she has just had her period. And it's just what you would expect, honestly, based on what we know of her.
Yeah. It's, you know, at the beginning, before Cersei is completely, sloshed, it has the sort of, well, you're going to be queen one day and you should know how to do this. Like a real teaching moment kind of veneer. But then that quickly vanishes.
Yeah.
And turns really into Cersei just explaining to Sansa that, one, they're all here because if they should prevail, Cersei wants the women are unimportant. I believe she says the hens are not important, but the cocks are all, So she wants these noble women to go home and tell everybody what a good job Cersei did protecting them and keeping their spirits up and blah, 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 blah. And then when the talk turns to, well, what happens if the city should fall? And Sansa just, Cersei's talking about all the rapes that are going to come because, if Stannis were to actually come, there's a chance that he would take care of the noble women, but odds are his soldiers are going to get there first. Yeah. And those men don't care necessarily about your station, or even if you're attractive or if you're young, according to Cersei, they come
once they get into that space in their head. Yeah.
And then Cersei is disgusted. One of the women is so upset she can't stop crying, and Cersei has her removed to go drink some dream wine. And Cersei is just full of contempt for her and says to Sansa, tears, woman's weapon, but that's not the only weapon she has. And then later we find out when she's talking about Cersei thinking if it were anyone sacking the city other than Stannis, she might have a chance as a woman. But
that killed
right.
me a little bit.
But she said something like she'd have a better chance of fucking his horse or something.
Yeah. I'd have a better chance of seducing his horse.
So and then throughout all of this, Sir Ilan Payne is he's looming in the background, and at one point he gets sent out to deal with some people who are trying to sneak away, and Cersei gets drunk enough to be like, you want to know why he's really here? And then she has him come over and explain it, and for a split second I was like, hold up. But then I really thought the book was about to do something really, really different. But no, it was not.
It took me a second to understand what you were hung up on there, but now I get it. Yeah.
So, and basically Cersei just announces that he's here because if shit goes bad, he's been instructed to kill everybody because Cersei is not going to be captured. And she's definitely not going to be raped by a bunch of fucking low-born soldiers, and fuck that.
Yeah.
So there's also a description of this 8-course meal that they're having that nobody is eating.
I can't stand this. You guys know how sensitive I am to food shit in general, and I really hate in movies when people order shit and they just get up and leave without eating it, or they don't pay or whatever. And it's a combo for me of the fact that nobody is eating it, which is just so, there are people out down there in the kitchen in the midst of this battle making a roast partridge and then seeing that shit just come back. And I mean, I'm sure they're like, all right, I'll eat it, but it's gotta be kind of, why am I here? I didn't need to work today then. Why did you call me in? And also the fact that we know how scarce food is everywhere, and that they are just turning food like this away while people are literally eating each other, like right outside the walls. That I just can't. I can't handle it.
It's a lot on display, and when you consider what's going on in here compared to what's going on at the battle, and also just what's going on in like the city and Flea Bottom, where shit has not been good for a minute, and they're all out in the streets causing a ruckus while this battle is happening. And they're just sitting up there drinking lots of wine and wasting food. They got jugglers and guys telling jokes. And I get, like, where else are they going to be? Of course, this is where they end up. I'm not arguing, saying it's unrealistic. I'm just saying, like, in contrast to everything that's going on, it's really wild.
Yeah, it's that's another thing that I kept thinking about, is like what it's like to be a jester in these sorts of situations.
I mean, Cersei runs out at the end of this, and Sansa, bless her heart, is trying to like maintain some sense of order before she leaves herself, and she's just like, "Yeah, tell us a joke," and I just felt so bad.
Can you imagine being put on the spot like this? How
like the city is on fire. What do you mean, tell a joke? Bitch, if you don't get the fuck out of my face. He should have thrown one of those balls he was juggling right in her face. No offense to Sansa, but...
Yeah, he starts like throwing things and then letting him hit himself in the head.
For anything. Like, he's so like trying to make something happen. And throughout this, Cersei has those two brothers, Osfred and what's the other one? It's like another O. Osfred and
Oswell.
Is that it? That sounds.
I think it's Osney.
Okay,
Oswell and Osney.
They're
Oh wait, Osmond. There's Osney and there's Osmond.
There's an Osfred
and Osfrid. There's three of them.
There's two. There's two that are coming in and out to give her news.
So we've got Osmond Kettleblack, Osney Kettleblack, and Osfrid Kettleblack. Their fucking family needs to branch out a little bit. That's just ridiculous.
And they're and every time she wants to know where her son is, where's Joffrey, and he is just. I love that his reports are like, well, he's up on the wall, but he's given a very stirring speech, or he's telling the arrowmen, giving them some tips on how to use the cross. But can you see their faces? I can see their faces. And their eyes are rolled so far in the back of their head.
I want to see it. I want to be there and see that happen.
And each time he finishes his little report with something like, "Oh yeah, it really lifted their spirits," or they were really glad to hear from him. Mm-hmm. And it's just, it's so transparent, but also, what else is he going to say?
And it seems to work, which I do kind of judge Cersei for the fact that, she's of course more preoccupied with is he still alive? Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, the everything about the way that Joffrey is handled in all of this feels so, what's the word I want? Belabored. And, it feels like when you have... I guess it basically is, having somebody in PR, handling your appearance somewhere. Mm-hmm. And it's weird to think about that when it's, so dangerous. You're actively trying to get this person to be visible in a place where being visible is a hazard. And it's just a weird, combo of things that you have to accomplish.
Right.
You need people to see him and be inspired, and he needs to seem like a little competent at least, but also he can't really be in there.
And also who they're handling is somebody that's very, very difficult to actually handle in any real way. So you have Cersei's directions, which are he is not to face any danger and he better come back alive. You have Tyrion, basically the same thing. But then you have Joffrey, who handling him, you have to be really subtle with your manipulation.
Yep.
Because he has to think that whatever he's doing is his idea. It just sounds like a real fucking chore. And
That's exactly
I feel really bad for everybody involved in that particular endeavor. And at the end, Cersei, it's not enough. She wants him back inside the castle. Which I don't even know if that's a good idea at this time, but that's what she wants. And like, he's out there, to your point, where, I guess it's good for the troops to see him. I guess his ineptitude isn't widely known.
Yeah.
So, you want to see your king, suited up for battle and out there with you. Mm-hmm. But he's not really in any position to be helpful to anyone.
No.
So it's just, and I just feel like it would have just made, it would have, if this performance wasn't necessary, it could have freed up some probably competent people to do more important shit.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well, is like, what a distraction it must be to have to deal with this kid when you've got actual shit to be doing. But, I mean, this is also actual shit in its way. Right. It's just, it's hard for me to understand. Like, I get it on the one level, and then on another, I'm like, really? Really?
Yeah. I guess it's a small concession is up until, well, Clegane was not really with Joffrey. He was taking, he was leading some kind of something. Because
some sortie?
Yeah, because he was out in it, and he had the other guys that were with, Joffrey. Because what I was going to say is the people with Joffrey are like the designated Joffrey handlers, right? But then I remembered that Sandor isn't with them. He was sent out to do something else. So the people who are escorting Joffrey, I'm sure we heard their names a bunch of times, but I tell you what, I can't remember who's with them.
Yeah, same.
But
look, there's a lot going on, everybody. Forgive me. But, you know what, I'm going to jump on over to the old notes that Austin Arminio sent me, just in case.
So the first Sansa chapter is Cersei getting more and more drunk, finding out that Sir Ilyn is there for them, and that, oh my god, there's this moment where Sansa thinks that Cersei knows about her plotting in the Goswood, but really Cersei's just mad about her going there to pray.
Oh my god, I remember the first time reading this and my fucking heart stopped. I was like, reading it now, I had forgotten what Cersei actually means, but like, Sansa doesn't get caught in that way that I'm in this moment.
Right. So
I was like, I genuinely, even reading it this time, was like, wait, how does she know about that? Wait, what? And then, she's just like, well, you committed treason in your heart. And I'm like, get over yourself.
Who do you think you are, a god? That's a god rule.
Right? Exactly.
And then she makes Sansa drink a whole cup of wine. And then I think that's pretty much the end of the first Sansa chapter.
I do want to mention Cersei talking about how her and her brother would like switch roles because they were so alike as children.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that that's a really interesting point because there are characters like Sansa who have grown up knowing one thing and being told to be one thing. And it's understandable why, especially as young as Sansa is, that she doesn't really question that. She just does her best to fulfill those requirements because that's what she's expected to do. And Cersei obviously has so much resentment of what's expected of her. And she has every right anyway, of course. But it feels like, I bet getting to see how her brother was treated compared to how she was treated was a major part of her realizing this is not fucking right. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, like he gets to do everything. He gets respected immediately. There's just the energy when I walk into a room in his clothes is completely different.
Yeah.
And I never really like thought about it in those terms before as being part of what underlines it all for her in such a dramatic way. Mm-hmm. But that would really get to you after a while.
I think it's really interesting when I was reading that bit. And initially, my first thought was, oh, you know, so she's more like an Arya, you know, or whatever. But that's not. It's not that. It's not the. I know I'm expected to sew and sing, but I'd rather like be fighting. Mm-hmm. It's not just that, like it is. Maybe for Arya or even Brienne to some extent. But Cersei got to literally experience, though I'm sure it's children, the energy in the room and everything is probably very different, but not the same as like for a grown man.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But it's significant enough that she would definitely notice a difference. Mm-hmm. You know, and I don't think that the other characters, the other two ladies that we know in this story end up, you know, learning to fight, you know, and doing things that aren't considered ladylike. Mm-hmm. But they don't, I don't know, it's just, even, you know what, now that I'm thinking about, like, Arya spent however long she's traveling on the road as a boy, air quotes, mm-hmm. right? But we never really hear in her head, I don't think, about what about feeling like she's treated differently.
I wouldn't agree with that, but it feels like mostly it's wrapped up in them knowing that she's of noble birth.
Well, what I mean is, like, a lot of the experiences from her POV when she's hiding as Harry or Arya or whatever. Mm-hmm. The way she's treated is poorly, but it's because she's like low birth and she's nobody, right. And she's an orphan and she's on her way to the Night's Watch and all that kind of stuff, and not a lot of I'm walking around as a boy and people are, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example of something that she would have experienced that would be a good comparison.
Yeah, like, she is mistaken for a boy so much before she, like, has to officially really pose and pretend to be one, that I don't know if it's, like, she sees the difference in that or not.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like she has the same, it has the same impact on her as it seems to have had on Cersei.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I have a good explanation as to why. Maybe just because they're different people. I don't know. Different. Yeah. Cersei seems to have a lot of resentment mm-hmm. around being, like, shortchanged because she's a woman. Mm-hmm. And Arya has the same resentments, but it just hits different.
Yeah.
But I'm hard-pressed to explain exactly how. You know what I mean?
I get what you mean. I would say that the difference, it hits different because what I think Cersei believes is that I am so smart that I could be doing this job better than any of these guys. And I see no evidence of that. I don't think Cersei is smart. She thinks that she is smart. And so she has this idea of, like, her competence being overlooked because she's a woman. And I don't think that's why, Cersei. I'm sure that's a factor, but you're also just not great at all of this. And you think you are. Whereas Arya wants to do something that she is actually good at and showing an aptitude for and willing to, like, take criticism and learn from somebody about it in a way that's very, you know, she is open to the fact that she may not know everything. And Cersei walks into things acting as if she already knows it all and doesn't need to be advised about any of it. Do you know what I mean?
I do. I think where I'm getting stuck is I'm imagining childlike Cersei, who, according to Cersei, is when she had these thoughts. So I'm trying to, you know what I mean? Unless, of course, I mean, and it's entirely possible that this is just how Cersei has always been. So maybe even at this young age, where she is telling us, you know, when they started to treat them differently, she still would have been fairly young, her and Jaime. And she's having all these thoughts then. So I'm trying to imagine, like, her, you know, 8-year-old Cersei to our, you know, 8 or 9-year-old Arya, however old, you know?
Right.
And being like both of them. But I think it's part of, like, what you're saying, where Cersei just has always believed that she could... I don't want to say she's in competition with Jaime, but she could be just as good as Jaime at whatever it is Jaime is good at, if given the opportunity.
Yes.
But not in competition, like to show him up. But just in, we're the same. We do the same things. You know what I mean? Like.
Yep.
And I think you made another good point too, with Arya being like open to learning. Oh shit.
Uh-oh.
I'm thinking too, and this is really good, way off base.
You got me thinking that your fucking recording failed or something.
No.
Don't do that.
Sorry. This is going to be really off base, but so Arya is not supposed to be what we would consider traditionally attractive at this age, right? She's got the long face and like kind of gangly and you know. Cersei has been beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? I wonder if that has anything to do with anything. Like, I wonder if not only the fact that she was a woman, you know, Jaime's a boy and they're growing up differently, but that she's turning into a very particular type of woman, you know? And if... I don't know, like
her value was so tied to
right, and that there was just not even enough wiggle room for her to imagine doing anything differently, like to be, because Cersei is so willful, you know. I'm like, in my head, I'm trying to imagine, why doesn't a young Cersei just act out, just rebel, just you know. And I'm wondering what other things were at play that... Because she feels so confined and trapped by this idea of what she was supposed to be, right?
I think that there's, like, we're also overlooking the fact that Arya wasn't really discouraged from fighting or doing... Like, her father gets her somebody to teach her. Cersei, it seems, has not been encouraged to involve herself. And, you know, we don't actually see her upbringing.
It's true.
But because we know what Tywin is like, for the most part, I can imagine.
There's just no wiggle room.
Yeah. So she's probably, like, stifled in a much greater way than Arya ever was. Because,
right.
I mean,
she's also
Lyanna
the
Stark
only
was
girl.
Described as... What was that?
So she's also the only girl, right? Which is a different kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
A different amount of pressure.
And Lyanna Stark was described as being really like Arya. So there's clearly a precedent for northern women to be able to go and fight and, like, you know, participate in things traditionally held for men. And being as southern as she is, maybe that wasn't the same for Cersei.
Yeah. Yeah, she just seems really burdened by this this idea of what she could be, and and feels like Cersei feels like it was a very small box, and she got cheated out of a much grander life.
Yeah.
I mean, she's queen, so it's pretty fucking grand, but like on her own terms, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, when she talks about, like, being married off, she says, sold like a horse to be ridden whenever my master wished, or something like that. And I was like, oof. Yeah, that is exactly how it is. And it being, like, put in that way just was very stark, pun intended, for a moment there.
I think when she says that to Sansa, too, Sansa's like, but you were queen. Like, what else could you have wanted? Like, what are you talking about? That's like, that's the pinnacle.
Literal goals.
And you're still not satisfied. And then, I think Cersei says something, her response to Sansa when she says that you were queen. I forget what she says, but it's basically kind of like, well, I mean, that's the best I could do. Which, when you think about it, is an insane thing to say.
Yeah, what was it that you were aiming for there, m'lady?
King!
I guess so.
Which, you know what? Honestly, I'm not mad at her about it when I think about it now.
Yeah, it's like, this is what's so fascinating for me about Cersei, is like how justified so much of her rage is, and her frustration and her disgust. Like, I really get it in a lot of ways. And then she'll just be so fucking brain dead about certain things. And I just lose all patience with her, I go wildly back and forth from like, yeah, exactly, to then, what are you doing? So, yeah. And Cersei says something about how she is going to, like, make Tyrion lead the vanguard if anything happens to Joffrey, which is really funny because it turns out that he is doing that anyway, and she is not aware of that.
When she finds out, she's just like, when she finds out that he has rode off, she's just like, oh, they must be quaking in fear.
Oh, I forgot she was like
she's
that.
Fucking
such a bitch. I love her. God, why?
Yeah, like there's no moment of any kind of like sense of, I mean, of course she's not like worried about him, but like you would think in her brain, she maybe would have a moment of just being like, well, shit, I threatened to do that. Now that motherfucker's out there really doing it. There's not even that. There's just immediate like mockery. Just
Yep. Any inkling that she could be made to have respect for him does not exist. That's a sailed ship. Okay, so then we go on to Tyrion's section, where we get the infamous line, "Those are brave men, let's go kill them."
Yeah.
And this is actually, and I'm reading from the notes again, thank you to Austin Arminio for sending these. He mentions Tyrion leads a charge on horses across the wrecked ships on the Blackwater, an awesome scene they didn't have the budget for in the show. And I had not, again, reminder everybody, I've forgotten most of the show. So I did not recall that they straight up did not do this, but that makes sense. So much of this battle, they just weren't able to really capture well. Even the things that they did do didn't quite look right because they were working on such a small budget, and they got so much more money than anybody's ever gotten for like a TV show for this, and it still really wasn't enough to pull it off. It's remarkable the amount of money that things take.
Yeah, I don't really remember anything about this battle except the ships. I remember him saying, like, there's a great brave men, let's go kill them. I thought that happened way earlier than it did. I don't remember hardly any of the fighting scenes.
Yeah.
Like, did they do...
The fighting scenes, they, like, pare way down on all of them. I mean, and like, this is not the only time that they did that. Remember the whole thing with Tyrion getting clocked when he's like... I'm trying to remember what it is, but he basically... The way they handled it in the show was he gets bonked on the head, passes out, and then he wakes up and the battle's over. Is the way they did it on the show, because they just did not have the money to show the battle. So yeah, that they had to cut corners many places, which led to certain things that would have been extremely epic, and I don't like to use that word, but I mean it, not appearing at all. And it's a bit of a shame, but they did the best they could, I suppose. And he mentions, there's a couple things in here from the notes. Austin's talking about a naked man fell from the sky and landed on the deck. And Austin is like, is that one of the antler men Joffrey is throwing in catapults? And oh man, I just didn't make that connection at the time. I'm certain that's what
it's gotta be, right?
Yeah.
Where else did he come from?
I swear to God. And they are alive, right? Like, when they're being catapulted, I'm assuming.
I thought that's how it worked, yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that he's still doing this, still throwing these men, I think there's a bit in the Sansa chapter where one of the fucking Osfrids or whoever comes and reports to Cersei that that's what he's doing. And you're just like, is this who is that helping?
Yeah.
Who is that helping? And then you come to this chapter and you see that it's helping no one.
Indeed. It's like, if anything, hindering his own side as much as anybody, because they're just getting fucking pelted with naked men. It's raining men.
There's a moment too where Tyrion is in all this, and he has a moment where he thinks about Clegane, and he's just like, fuck. It was the fire that he was afraid of. Yeah. And I was like, did I misread that? So did Tyrion not get that it was the fire that he was afraid of?
Honestly, in my reading of it, I thought Tyrion knew as well. I thought he got it.
I did too, but maybe that was just an assumption. Or I was like, I thought he already got there. But
apparently, it was just that he was afraid, but didn't really understand. I think he thought, okay, Sandor's been pushed too far in general in this whole battle. But yeah, I thought that he understood what the fear was as well.
But yeah, he gets it now. And he's thinking, shit, I should have turned back. And then there's a moment too where the I call them the crowd, but I guess they're his men, his troops. So now the crowd, I guess, this is like a weird group of people following him around for no reason.
Hey, I'm here in King's Landing tonight. How y'all doing?
They're just heckling him. They're just following him. But at one point, they're all chanting different things, and the King's Landing and Lannister, and then they start chanting Half Man, and he is, right after that it says Tyrion felt drunk, and at first I was like, is it just the feeling of having these people yelling that at him but in support, but then it goes right into the description of this battle fever that he calls it, and it is I mean, it's a pretty good description. It's not anything that I'm looking for in my life anymore.
Honestly, it's the sort of thing that it appeals to me in theory. Don't get me wrong. I don't like to be hurt. I don't like pain. I don't enjoy seeing other people in pain at all. But the idea of just being so in the closest that I can come to this is the rush at lunch when you work in food service. Where you are so fucking present because everything requires your absolute attention or something is going to go really fucking wrong and you are never going to hear the end of it. So you just boom, 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 and you're on top of everything and you're refilling the silverware and you got their water glass refill before they even said anything to you and you're just on it. And then you look up and it has been 2.5 hours and it felt like half an hour to you. That is the closest I've ever gotten to this feeling.
And it's pretty good. I can't, short of an actual fight, I can't come up with anything else.
It is a fight.
Jesus Christ, what an awful way to
I
live.
don't miss those days at all.
Fuck, dude. No, thank
Anybody
you.
who's still working in food service right now,
bless you.
You have my blessings. Like,
you are the real heroes, and I'm not even being funny. That shit is, I don't know how anybody does it.
It's thankless in the best of times, and right now, I mean, oh my god.
If I see somebody older than like 24 waiting tables, I'm just like, how? Mm-hmm. How? I can't imagine. Yep. I simply can't even. So, but, this thing with the boats too, like creating that bridge that apparently they're just like riding horses over, which, I mean, in the moment, I guess that seems like a thing you could do. I wouldn't advise it.
What is your problem?
Well, because if I'm reading this, I mean, there's a lot going on. But at one point, I feel like Tyrion is watching someone else try to ride their horse off of one of the boats, use it as a bridge, you know. And he's watching, and I feel like he even calls the guy a fool. But then, like, a page later...
Well, you know, I mean, it's all about your perspective in the moment. What looks like a good idea.
And I was just like, but wait, you had just said. But,
yeah, you know.
And then he has that moment where he hears the noise, and, like, I heard it when he said he heard it. Just like that big, long creak where you know everything is about to just collapse under your feet.
Yep.
And my heart just sank.
Had this happen in a bed once. That's not even a joke. I really did, guys. It was back when I was first dating Brendan, and we were fucking so hard. And all of a sudden, it just went, and the fucking headboard and the, like, part that attaches underneath came apart, and we just, like, hit the floor and burst out laughing.
Damn.
Yep, we were really going for it. So, that's that. My 20s.
Well, you know, none of us had really good beds in our 20s.
It was my grandmother's bed.
Oh, that was a solid
oak joint. It was like a hand-me-down, like, wood bed. Yeah, it was like... That shit should not have come off like that. It was splintered. It was like there was no repairing that shit unless I got a sander and refinished and shit. Yeah. It was broke.
I thought you had some, like, frame from IKEA or some shit.
Nope. Yeah, it was like I was sad about it breaking, honestly, because it was like real solid, and it had 4 posters and the headboard and footboard. So it was like a really, like, antique looking, you know. It was nice.
It was more than antique looking.
I mean, I guess, yeah. It was vintage. I wouldn't call it an antique, but it was vintage for sure.
Oh my goodness. Out here breaking beds. All right.
Back in my glory days.
Oh, fuck.
Look, I relate to these characters so well. I worked in food service and I broke a bed. It's almost exactly the same thing.
And you also had that fire in your office.
Oh my god. God. Oh. I hate it.
Oh, shit. But, alright, so Tyrion is really, like, out here, though. Like, he is really in it for real. And fucking Pod is also in it to win it. And I cannot remember if the show gave him, like, he doesn't get I don't think, like, Tyrion doesn't do the whole horse in the water thing, so I can't remember. I don't think he ends up in the water in the show. Do you remember?
I don't recall.
Because I'm trying to remember if they had a thing with Pod, like, saving his... Because he saves his life. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, like here in the book. I can't remember if they did something, you know...
I think they did, but I don't think it was like this.
But they had him be, like, responsible for saving his life?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember that at all. But yeah, so Tyrion ends up going into the water, and it is not looking great. And then someone is, like, giving him a hand. It's fucking Mandon.
Sir Mandon Moore.
Right? And he thinks that he's going to help lift him out of the water, and that is not what he's doing. And he, like, slashes him in his face.
Yeah.
And so, I if that happened in the show, don't remember it. If the treachery, I mean, you know, I don't have any memory of that. So I was really like, what the fuck?
Yeah, Tyrion has some really good presence of mind there where he's like, wait, why is he reaching for me with his left hand?
Yeah. And
I was just like, wow, you really must be in it to notice something like that. Yeah. You know, like, focused.
It's funny. It says something, too, like, fuck, does it say that he was too late? It was, the way it's written is really cool because it's like, you know, it's like he's looking at him like he has this weird thought. Something is, like, bothering him at the back of his head. Mm-hmm. And it's that he's got his left hand out. And, he says, is that... And then Tyrion doesn't know if that is what got him to move out of the way or if he actually just saw the sword coming.
Yeah.
But it was like... So we have Tyrion notice that. Then he moves out of the way. And then we realize that, you know... what's really happening. Mm-hmm. So it was a weird moment of being like a little disoriented for a second, which is cool because I'm sure that's how Tyrion must have felt.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, so that I enjoyed that little bit a lot. I mean, you know, not enjoyed what happened, but I enjoyed the reading of it because it really was.
It's interesting, too, because, like, what his brother says about, you know, being in the battle, and you're, like, laughing because people's swords seem so slow, and you're just, like, dancing between them. And because of this moment where Tyrion is, like, reacting to something and doesn't even know what it is he's reacting to, but it saves his life, it kind of feels like he had the potential to be great at this sort of thing, but probably also wasn't given a lot of opportunities. I don't know what kind of training he had, but I'm going to guess that it was very perfunctory, like what we have to, you know?
Yeah, I really like that you brought that up, actually, considering what we were talking about earlier with Cersei. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good observation. And like, kind of like Arya, where, you know, he seems to have a little bit of aptitude for it. Mm-hmm. So
an instinct.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so this shit happens, and
what do you think that's about?
I feel like Cersei at some point must have been like, if you get an opportunity to kill this motherfucker, if nobody's watching, I'm gonna need you to do that.
Gotcha. Yeah.
God, wouldn't it be terrible if it turned out it was Tywin who said that?
Oh, I mean. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility, I guess.
I mean, you know, we find out at the end of Sansa Chapter that, you know, he's here, and, you know, but I don't know how he would have finagled that, but, you know, I just feel like you can't put nothing past Tywin. And when you don't think about him for 8 chapters, and then
that's true.
Then you get reminded that he exists, all of a sudden you see him behind all the corners.
Yep.
Because, y'all, I'm not going to lie, I haven't thought about Tywin in a minute. It's been a second.
Same.
So this happens, and he goes under, and he is spent now. The adrenaline, the battle fever thing is kind of starting to wear off. He hurts now. Like when before he couldn't even. There's a moment where he's like, "Why does my shoulder hurt?" And then he looks and he's got a fucking arrow. He's like, "Oh, that's why."
I can't imagine that kind of thing where, like, an actual arrow going through your shoulder is just a vague sort of, what? No, thank you.
And when it hit him, it, like, lands, like, in this weird spot, like, right between, like, the breastplate and some other one, like, a little open spot. Mm-hmm. And when it first happens, and we know what happens, we're just like, oh, that doesn't seem so bad. And you just kind of assume that he took care of it right then. And then a couple pages later, you're like, oh, this motherfucker's been running around with that shit.
Yep. Just continuing to operate.
Oh, God. But there's a moment, too. I won't, like, get bogged down in all of it. But there's a bit where somebody yields to him. And he, like, leans over to grab, like, whatever the guy is holding out to him.
The gauntlet.
And he pulls out a whole hand.
The guy's hand is still in the gauntlet. Hands over, you guys. I had completely forgotten this, and it is truly awful. I was listening to this, and I got to that part and genuinely went, like, while I was, because it just caught me so off guard. I knew something awful happened to the guy because he's in the middle of yielding. And I'm thinking to myself, yielding? This? Is that even a thing right now? Like, I truly wasn't sure if that was allowed or if, you know, Tyrion was going to be like, yeah, you yield and stab him through the heart. And, you know, like, or somebody else would do that. And then it's, like, so much worse that the guy is in the middle of yielding, but he's, like, half dead already.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was somehow, like, way more tragic for me.
Like, or that he's still yielding. You know, he's still attempting to yield, even though this ship is, you know, this is a done deal at this point. There's a bit, too, I think, a little bit earlier in his chapter where Tyrion and his men are, like, on their horses, and they see a bunch of men from Stannis' side are coming out of the water, and they just go around and kill the ones that they can. And he says something like, give them, like, a cleaner death, you know, just, and I guess it's, like, you know, the humane thing to do. These guys are coming out of the water and they're drowning, burned up. Some of them are still burning. Some of them are bleeding. They've lost limbs and shit.
Yeah.
And you're just like, that's another part of, like, this type of warfare, this type of, like, hand-to-hand combat, you know, where people can try to yield when if only half of their body attached, you know, and you could just go around, like, putting people out of their misery. It's just, I don't know, oof. It's a far cry from what we get as what our idea of war is, and what we see of war anymore. Those of us who aren't actually in it, I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we don't even see people coming home anymore, you know.
I know.
We don't even see, like, they used to televise whenever the caskets would come home, and stopped doing that years and years and years ago because it was too depressing.
Wow, who knew?
Yeah, so this is just, it's hard to imagine that this is actually a thing that people did, you know, that people actually, like, engaged in fighting this way.
Yeah, I've always been sort of fascinated at the idea of the cleanup afterward as well, and finding each person and figuring out who they all are and how you manage that. And, like, the heraldry, of course, comes into play really heavily with something like that. And, you know, it's a similar, like, question that I have to when Kat gets given Ned's bones. And I'm like, is there any chance that those are actually his bones? Like, I have no idea how likely it is that they would have saved them and done anything with them. I really don't know. I have no idea of how much that sort of thing was respected or taken seriously when people were this kind of enemy.
Yeah, you know? It's hard to tell because in this book and in this world, we have this very defined, entrenched religion that everybody is supposed to be adhering to, at least in the South. And you would think that outside of political machinations. Like, once Ned is dead, right? Then his body, you would hope, would be turned over, to be cleaned and shrouded or whatever, the body is taken care of.
Shrouded. I thought you said trouted like the fish.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing?
That's a thing. And you kind of hope that there's some type of decency that prevails, once he's been killed, and Joffrey's done,
That's a good point. Like, now Joffrey's eyes are off it, so maybe we can treat this man with some
exactly. Like, he got his head on a pike. He's happy. We can deal with the rest of this. Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Did Ned's bones have his head? I can't remember.
I think that they did because Tyrion, when he gets to the castle, is like, we're taking these fucking things
That's
down.
right. Okay, right.
He really does not appreciate this whole energy.
So I think I'd like to think that those were really Ned's bones. Mm-hmm. But I'm also
I like to think that also.
I'm also just desperate for some sort of decency. Even if I have to make it up.
You just fucking described my last decade, girl.
So his Tyrion chapter ends with him being saved by Pod, thank God. Mm-hmm. And
thank Pod.
Yeah. Ma'am.
I'm sorry, I had to. It was right there.
It was
I was waiting for you to do it. You didn't do it.
No. I saw it there and I said, no, not this time.
Well, more's the pity.
So then we go to the last one, which is the Sansa one. And I just want to say, because we talked a lot about it, but one of the things I have to say, I was really, really irritated. I was really irritated with the way that fucking Dantos comes and tells her the news.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big old celebration. And I guess it's good that the city didn't fall. I guess. But, I mean, he's so hammered. But, like, she doesn't want to hear that this is what happened. She wants to go home. Mm-hmm. You were supposed to steal her away and get her home safely. And you come in completely hammered, singing practically about how the city has been saved. And Renly, I guess, is back.
Yeah. He's back from the dead.
And I don't know,
don't call it a comeback.
I was just really irritated with him. He's been useless, but I don't know, dude. Read the room.
Yeah.
Something.
It's very much feeling like, to me, that he gets caught up in wishing he were part of it and just loses sight entirely of what it's like for her. It's all about him. He says something like, to be a knight again. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I was just like, oh, whatever.
Yeah. And he's singing about to be a knight again now that they fucking won. He wasn't singing about that shit last night.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh. But, so yeah, I was really disgusted with that.
I really am enjoying the extent to which you have no time for Dantos.
I don't know. It just...
This is one of my favorite things about George R. R. Martin's writing, is that you can, like, fully sympathize with somebody and realize that they've been done wrong, but also be like, but get the fuck out my face, though. I don't want to talk to you. And that's how it is with Dantos. Like, I recognize that he got dealt a real bad hand. Like, I think that Austin sent us the history of what happened to his family, and it was like horrific.
Yeah.
So I can understand that and how it motivated him to drink. And he was nearly killed, and now he's been made into a laughingstock. And like, total sympathy. It's fucked up.
Yeah,
but also,
you're the worst. Get
the fuck out of my face.
Every time I see you, I know you're not bringing me anything but the worst of everything. That's what you're bringing me.
Yep.
So, but So yeah, Sansa Chapter also. My God, Lancel comes in, and this is the first time we see Lancel, I think.
Yep.
For this, because he had been like out in those streets. He comes in to tell Cersei that it's done. The battle is over and it's been lost.
He's a little premature on this, but
yeah, right. Listen, Lancel, fucking Lancel. So he comes in wrong, tells everybody that the battle's lost. She says, "Go tell my brother." And
with like no energy to her voice at all.
Like she does not give a fuck. She is
also like, your brother's out. Like, do you not think he knows? Like, if Lancel knows, I would think Tyrion also knows.
It is
just saying.
It is just exactly, exactly. And then he says, "Well, your brother's probably already dead." And he tells her, that he was out on the bridge of boats, and in the middle of him updating, one of the Kettle Blacks come rushing in to update the update.
Really making it sound like a fucking cavalcade of fools over here. And I don't think that's inaccurate, but it's just throwing it into sharp
That's just like, oh God. So he comes rushing in. It's a mess. There's fighting like on both sides. We think the Stannis' people are actually fighting each other now. The Hound is fucking missing. Nobody knows where he went.
Yep.
Oh my God, that made me laugh so hard because I was like, he left like a little bit ago. He been gone, but
everybody seemed to think like, yeah, let him blow off some steam and he'll come back.
I think so.
He just didn't.
They thought he was gonna like smoke a cigarette and come back after his break.
Right.
Like that when you clock out from your job and you know you're not coming back, but nobody else knows you're not coming back.
He only smokes half a cigarette so the fire doesn't get too close to his face.
Oh my God, girl.
It's very expensive.
And he says, he says, that they're ramming at the King's Gate. Your men are deserting. They're killing their own officers, and Sansa is just kind of listening to this update, and she's just like, "Fuck, this is it. Fuck, this is it." And she like looks around for Sir Ilyn, and he is not there. And instead of being relieved that she doesn't see him, she just feels like, "Oh, but he's still around. I can tell. I won't be able to get away from him."
She can feel him, and I was like, "That? I don't. What does that mean?"
I can feel him. He's close. I'll not escape him. He'll have my head. Which is just not the thoughts you want to be having. Mm-mm. So Cersei is just like, raise the drawbridge, barricade the doors. And somebody says, "What about the women that you let go pray?" And she's just like, meh. They chose to leave. Fuck them.
That's what they get.
It's just something like, I hope their God has them, or let them keep praying, or basically it's in God's hands now. It's above me, is what she said. And
it's above me. Honestly, that's exactly what it is.
That's really how it feels. She's just like, they left. I can't help them. And then she starts wanting to know about Joffrey, and she wants him back. And Lancel is actually kind of arguing with her, and he gets like a little loud.
Yeah.
Like, I get like either the heat of the moment, battle fever, I don't know. And he yells at her, "No, we're not going to bring him back. He needs to stay where he is. He's the fucking king." And she doesn't want to hear any of that.
No.
And she sends another Kettle Black out to go, I guess, get Joffrey and bring him back. I'm not sure how they're going to accomplish that, but
she jams her fingers into his wound.
Oh yeah, when Lancel tries to be in the way, she just right in there. Ugh.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
That got to me a little bit. I was just like, that is cold.
Yeah, yeah. And he almost drops from the fucking pain of it. Like,
yep.
And she leaves. She just leaves everybody. She doesn't say where she's going. And all the people that are, like, huddled in her little queen's ballroom are just like, the fuck? Where is she going? We're lost. The battle's done. She's running. And our Sansa. I love this line. She never knew why she got to her feet, but she did. And I just feel like...
Because she's, like, a leader in her way.
Mm-hmm.
She is.
And, yeah. And this is... This is also low-key kind of what she's been trained her whole life to do. Is,
definitely.
You know, be a calming voice, taking charge of this type of situation when there aren't, like, air quotes, like, men to take the lead.
Right.
You know? It's her and old women and old men and small children there, you know? Some serving people. And it's just for her instinct. We're talking a lot about people's instinct in these chapters. Hers kicks in. And hers...
That's true. It is instincts a lot, isn't it? I didn't really think about that, but you're right.
And so she jumps up and she tries to kind of, like, calm everybody down. She tells them that... tells them a little bit what she heard, not all of it. But she tells, Joffrey's coming back to the castle. The queen will be right back. She fucking tells Moon Boy, make us laugh, which it is impossible to do that when you just say to someone, make us laugh.
I guess that's why they pay him the big bucks. I'm sure they don't.
What does he do? He does a cartwheel. That's not making nobody laugh.
I don't know, Rashawn. They didn't have a lot to choose from in those days. And I bet that shit killed.
Cartwheels are like the height of comedy.
Like, people used to play with a hoop and a stick, and that was really fucking something.
I believe that is something that old cartoons made up. I don't believe anybody ever really did that.
People were like, oh, I just really came in from an intense time with my red ball. Went hard with it for like 3 hours.
Wait, I had a red ball. Those joints were fun as fuck.
Did you have a hoop? Did you? You can tell me.
I did not have a hoop.
Just tell me if you had a hoop.
I did not have
I had a hoop, but no stick. It was terrible. It was such a tease.
I had a stick, but no hoop. If only we had met sooner.
Oh my god. Can you imagine having siblings and one of you gets the hoop and one of you gets the stick for a Christmas present? Some assembly required.
Oh my god.
I'm just saying.
Did you?
What?
This is not going to be funny to anybody else, but I shared it in the text chat, but I recently discovered that Mr. Potato Heads.
I'm sorry. This is not what I was thinking we were going to. Okay, go ahead.
When Mr. Potato Head was introduced, you guys, I didn't know that people played with real potatoes.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that was how that went. Like,
see, this is what I'm talking about, Rashawn. You just sold somebody a mouth with a peg on the back and told them to go dig around in the root cellar for the rest of the toy. And you didn't even get to play with it for more than one day because that shit would start to rot.
What the fuck kind of toy is that? Oh my god. I wish...
Yeah, play with that for an hour and then give it to your mother for her to make dinner.
I wish there had been a camera on my face when I was watching that fucking thing on History Channel. I could not. I was just like, but it's a potato though. I could not get over it.
I like to think that it would be really fun if you had real weird shaped potatoes.
Oh
you know how you get some vegetables that are just like bananas. Listen, the way they're shaped?
Potatoes are like 9 times out of 10 going to be the thing that has like something that looks like a dick growing out of it every time.
Yep.
Every time.
Because potatoes do sex.
All right.
Yeah, Cartwheels, juggling. You have a guy who's in here singing.
Listen, somebody is on stilts up in this bitch.
How awkward do you feel in the corner and on your stilts, hearing that everybody's about to die and you lost the war and you're on your fucking stilts? Can't take these off, or...
I mean, it's really, the whole scene is just, I don't think...
I'm just picturing him trying to flee the castle with his stilts because he can't get them off. Going down the stairs from the tower.
The narrow-ass spiral stairs.
Everybody's bashing into him.
Oh my god. Sansa runs into a guard. It's like stealing shit. Just trying to get up to her room. Imagine what the fucking guy on stilts would run into. Oh my god.
Either he's being knocked all over the place, or he's impaling people because he's very effective actually at getting out.
He's gonna hold up, have a whole bunch of people behind him trying to get down the stairs to eventually just roll over him.
Oh, they need a fire eater that can breathe fire and clear a path. All of the carnies are getting out if it kills them.
That's the POV we need.
I'm sorry, but this stilts thing is really it's taken off in my mind. It's a whole thing now.
Oh shit. So she has Moon Boy do the cartwheels, and she tries to get somebody to... Oh my god, Lord Giles. I meant to mention him before. In the first Sansa chapter. The guy that Cersei was trying to pay to sneak Tommen somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
He's in the Queen's ballroom as well. And all he's doing all night is coughing and drinking. And at one point, he's so drunk, his head is in the dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And Cersei is like, oh, why did I bother to get him released? And I was like, wait, not only did you bother to get him released, but he was part of your big plan.
What have I been telling you? She is bad at this, Rashawn. She is bad. She mistakes people who are pliable for people who are useful.
Oh, it's
and them
terrible.
Shits are not the same thing.
It is just, and it was again another moment of her. No kind of I made a bad call on that one. Not even.
Nope.
Just
it's fully on him.
Oh, yeah. God. And then the thing about, why did I bother to get him released? It's why did I do that favor for him? No.
Yeah, wrong takeaway there, girl.
So Sansa's trying to get some people to help. Someone else is hurt. Oh, it's Lancel. After Cersei has jammed her hand into his fucking chest wound. And she tries to get somebody to help. And they just look at her and run. It's a guy holding a flagon of wine. And she's like, hey.
He runs off with that flagon. He's like, I'm going to need this.
This whole chapter is such a mess. Oh.
Oh god, this shit is so funny to me.
It really once Cersei leaves the room, things just really go downhill. And Sansa has a moment too where she's like, why am I trying to help this motherfucker?
Mm-hmm.
And she calls herself weak, and she's just like, Joffrey's right, I am weak, I am stupid, but that's just who she is. Not weak and stupid, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no.
So
no, that did sound wrong. I didn't think that's what you said, but good clarification.
So it's kind of around this time when Sodantos comes back and kind of whispers to her while everybody else is paying attention to the other shit that's going on, and he's like, "Hey, you should go back to your room."
Yeah.
Lock yourself in there, and I'll come and get you when it's over. And she walks calmly out of the room, which good for her. And makes her way back to her bedchamber. She runs into the guy that's like trying to fucking steal a bunch of shit. Who, once he realizes that she's not interested in stealing his stolen shit, he just keeps going.
Stealing his stolen shit.
And I think it's a is it one of? Oh, it just is one of the guards. It doesn't specify what kind of guard. Because I was curious if it was one of the sellswords or if it was one of like the real guards, but it doesn't say.
Yeah, I kind of assumed that it was a sellsword, but yeah, I'm realizing that I have no reason to assume that other than unprofessionalism, which, like, at this point, I guess doesn't really count for anything because they think the city is sacked.
And yeah, so she gets up to her room and she gets to look outside, which what feels like the first time since all of this has been going on. Mm-hmm. I'm not exactly sure what the setup is in the room they were in, but it felt like it was like very heavily draped.
Yeah. I think it might have just very few because it's called a keep, and they generally don't let them have windows for security. So
that makes sense. Okay.
I think that maybe they, were prevented. Anybody who's at a window also has like a crossbow, you know?
Yeah, true, yes. Yeah, I'm sure that if they had them, they probably wouldn't want to be at them.
Yeah.
So she gets to take a look outside, and she just sees, a city on fire, a river on fire, like, and the smell of it too is also getting to her, which hadn't been really before. And she's so overwhelmed that she thinks to herself, well, maybe she can just go to sleep, and when she wakes up, it'll be a new day. And somebody can just fucking tell her if she's going to live or die. And she doesn't have to think about it anymore.
Yep.
And that is some real resignation right there. That is...
I really, like... The feeling of just, like, I just don't want to be in charge of what happens next. Mm-hmm. I'll just lay down and let somebody else fucking come to me and tell me. I really resonated with that.
I mean, she has so little control and has had so little control that... her whole life has been people telling her what she's going to do next.
Yeah.
And now, with this, however long she's been in King's Landing, and then after the fucking nightmare that Cersei gave her, this idea of just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll just, somebody will tell me tomorrow what's going to happen to me next, I'm done. And yeah, it's really sad. Mm-hmm. Because it really, I mean, she hasn't had any power throughout all of this, and she's been aware of that, and we've all been aware of it, but there's something about this sort of just this final kind of, I'm just okay. Like, fuck, whatever.
Somebody else tells me if I literally live or die.
It feels like, just really somebody at the very end of their rope. And she goes to lay down, and surprise, she does not get to just lay down. Nope.
She does not.
She has to have some more bullshit before she could just fucking go to sleep.
Honestly.
And I was so tired for her. By this point...
These people are all so high maintenance.
I'm so exhausted. And I know she must be too. So she has to deal with this sad, drunk, fucking guy,
Another one.
Even drunker than the fucking last one. And in his shit. And it's just shit. He's I'm leaving away from here. Says he's going to the north. And she's just like, you're not going to get out of here.
Yeah.
And he's, I can go wherever I want. I got a white cloak and a pointy sword. Look at me. And when she says, why did you come here? Instead of being like, you should leave with me. We can go. I'll take you home. He says, you promised me a song. Can you hear how annoyed I am?
Yeah, I can.
If he had started with, I'll get you home, leave with me, I'm going north, I'll take you home, maybe we would have something. Maybe. But that's not what it starts with. He starts with, you owe me a song, and when she says I can't, and she asks him to, like, leave her alone, that you're scaring me, he does the look at me thing again.
I love that you're calling it that, because that is what it comes down to, but...
I mean, I get it, y'all. I get it. I just don't care. He needs to be seen by this little girl. Because I guess he wants to disavow her of her foolish, childish notions.
Blah, 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 blah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, after he says this to her, everything scares you, look at me, look at me. Then he says, I could keep you safe. You should have opened with that.
I honestly... What is the deal with him? Like, he's just not approaching any of this in a way that makes sense. And I guess that's like him being scrambled by his fear and being drunk. But like, it also feels like maybe it just occurred to him. Almost like, you know, you're saying you could have led with that. Like he went into this thinking, okay, I'm trying to get her to run off with me, and that's why I'm here. But maybe that's not why he's here. Maybe he just thought of that.
Yeah, that would make more sense than anything else he's doing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and again, like, the show did the thing with him and her, even before the scene, right? We had a lot of these moments from the book on the show with him and her. Mm-hmm. But... maybe it has to do with the performance that we got from the actor that portrayed him. I always felt like his moments with Sansa were, even the gruffest ones, felt like they had a lot of heart behind them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was a conscious choice or if the actor was that's just how he was. But I felt that there was a certain tenderness that it sort of underscored a lot of their scenes together, which made the eventual thing we get with him and Arya in the show feel almost like, oh, okay. Because we had kind of seen him have the same sort of, like...
Humanity
with Sansa already. But, like...
Right.
The book Sander, a little bit different.
Yeah. I feel like that's kind of true about most of the characters, is that the show made people a little bit warmer a lot of the time than they actually are in the book. Mm. And that's the danger of just needing people to be, like, somewhat likable.
Excuse me.
TV is a whole different medium, so I can understand it feeling like... But, you know, it has been done where almost nobody is somebody that you're rooting for and you still are compelled to watch it, Succession. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, this is one of many people that I feel that way about, where it felt like they really made him like a big teddy bear inside. Like, he looks like a grizzly, but really, he's a stuffed animal. I'm like,
exactly.
I don't know.
So he has her sing the song while he has a dagger at her throat because he's a teddy bear. And when she's done singing, he just gets up and walks out of the room, leaving behind his cloak.
Yeah.
Because symbolism. Yeah. So that's how that ends. That moment with them ends, not the chapter. I guess she just sort of falls asleep, because then when she gets up, it is, it's kind of almost morning. It's dawn. And then Sir Dantas shows up and gives her the great good news.
The way you say that sounds like it's, have you heard the good news?
I like it too.
Do you have some time to talk about our Lord and Savior, Renly?
When he comes in, he's like just saying, it's done, it's over, the city is saved. But he doesn't give her details. He's just talking about the danger is gone, the banners are beautiful. And she has to be like, "Can you tell me what happened, please?" And she has to shake him because he's just so fucking delirious and drunk. And because she has no, like, it's over, but that means nothing to her. Like, it's over, but like, who's here? Who won? Who's in charge? Like, and he goes on again with like, to be a knight again. And some say people were like shouting for Lord Renly, and I heard it from this guy who heard it from that guy, and he says at the end, "And do you know who led the vanguard?" And she actually says out loud, like, "Was it Robb?"
Robb, yeah.
Because he's like, hasn't given her anything. And he says it was Lord Renly in his green armor. And,
I'm so, like, the fact that he doesn't think about how she's going to assume that you're excited to tell her because it's like her brother. It's just so infuriating. This guy is so clueless.
Yep. And when she says Robb, he just like screeches over her. "No, it was Lord Renly." Like, not even a moment to be like, "Oh God, no, I'm so sorry that you even thought of that," or.
Yep.
But like, he's hammered, so like he's, But yeah, having to listen to this, because like we know, well, we don't know, but as readers, I guess we don't know. As a show watcher, I know it's not Robb. But I don't know. This is really hard to read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, everything that is riding on it for her, it's such a weird position for her to be in, where simultaneously you want them to lose, but you also, if you lose, like, you've just been told that you're just going to be like maybe raped and murdered before anybody even realizes who you are. And it's like who do you root for in this moment? Like, who does she go to pray if she's praying, right? Yep.
What does she pray for? I feel like she's got to pray for Robb ultimately. but you're right, like what Cersei has put in her head, I don't know if she imagined any kind of salvation was coming, Like, and if it was coming, would she last long enough for it to mean anything? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, I don't know. If I'm her and I go to sleep and King's Landing is on fire, like, I don't...
What do you think is the deal with Renly?
So... I know it's not Renly. I know from pre-books, show watching, and then reading, like, all kinds of shit. I know I read that it is not Renly. I mean, I know he's dead from the show. But I also know I read that it is somebody dressing in his armor. But I can't remember who does it. Part of me, my memory says it's Loras, but then I'm like, no, I don't think that's right. But so I don't know who's doing it, and if it's someone doing it that is, I don't know who's doing it, and I don't know what their game is. You know what I mean? Like, I can't remember if it's someone that was loyal to Renly that is attempting to, because whoever it was, it seems to be fighting on the side of the king, right?
Right.
So it's weird for me because I'm like, well, if it was a supporter of Renly, why would they be supporting Joffrey? So I don't know if that's exactly what's happening with that, or if it's some kind of weird, like, double agent thing, like an agent of chaos is just out there doing their own thing, or if it's someone who is working, you know what I mean, like in conjunction with other people. So that part, that part I don't know about yet.
All right. Well, I do.
Excuse
and
me.
let's see what else is going on in this section. I just want to make sure because sometimes I will clean forget to look at Austin's notes, and then there'll be something that I'm like, I really wish I had thought to check and mention this. And then sometimes I'll look and it'll be like, oh yeah, okay, good. We talked about all of this. So this is such a big section, the Blackwater Battle, that I just want to make sure that we're touching on everything we can here because after this week, we're going to go back to 2 chapters per episode. We only did the 3 chapters each for the lead up and Blackwater itself.
Gotcha. Go ahead and make a note of that.
So he has a side-by-side about like the difference between the show and the book version of the Hound and Sansa.
Oh, fun.
In the show, the Hound doesn't confront her in her room or threaten her into singing for him. He just tells her he's leaving the city and offers to take her with him. In the books, the context of it seeming like he's seconds away from maybe attempting to rape her, not going along makes much more sense. I remember some show people criticizing her for not going. So yeah, that makes sense. That like if you're just watching it and it seems like he's offering her a way out and she doesn't go, you'd be like, what the fuck? You have been trying to get out this whole time.
I think when I was watching, I had a similar reaction because, again, the relationship with him on the show was never came across to me as quite as menacingly as it does in the books. And without that, excuse me, without that knife to the throat context, I was like, yeah, go. At least get out of the city.
Yeah, especially because he has made it so clear in the show that he's like on her side repeatedly. So it feels like even less as if it makes sense.
Yeah.
You have an ally who's offering to take you away, which is allegedly what you wanted. What's going on.
Yep.
And then, this one is a bit of a spoiler, so I won't read that one.
Boo!
Yeah, sorry about that.
How dare
read
you?
It too.
He put it in the notes. You have to read them.
Yeah, and the other thing is a bit of a spoiler as well, but it looks like
I'm going to just tell Austin to just start sending me the notes to the show.
Yeah.
Just send them directly
to
Austin,
me. Yeah, Austin, definitely do that. That'll go very well for you. I know that this is such a stupid thing, but I love when Tyrion, he's in the battle and then he like stands up and he's been turned around and he's like, wow.
Oh my God.
How did Stannis get across so fast?
I forgot about that.
There's something that's like so simple about that moment that I found hilarious. I have like that kind of you assuming the most unlikely thing happened instead of just that you got it wrong. Yeah, I have done that many times and always wonder to myself, how did I think that's how it went? Of course, that's not what this is. Anyway, okay, so I think that's all of it. So I just want to say hi to 2 new patrons for this week. We've got Patrick Hendricks and Emily Peoples. Welcome to both of you. Thank you very much for signing up and becoming part of the community. I think Emily just joined the Facebook group also. Don't forget to join the Discord. And because Facebook is trying to shut me down. Did you see that thing I posted?
Girl, I did. Well, you said it was from 3 years ago?
3 years ago, they're coming at me for this shit now. They're trying to shut me. They're like, your page is close to being whatever.
Unpublished.
Unpublished. Like, jerk off motion. Nobody sees my fucking posts anyway, Facebook. When you look at the data that they give you as the page owner, I have an average view of like 50 per post.
Jesus
like,
Christ.
why would I bother?
Maybe you would do better if you just start a new page. Maybe you get better engagement.
Ugh. So anyway, yeah, I understand everybody gravitating to Facebook, but I'm just saying I may not be able to be there for very long. And also, by the time this goes up, it'll be over. Ugh, I hate when I realize that. We're doing the Unsober this weekend for the 10-year anniversary of Unspoiled. And because this is like the show that started it all, I wish that I had thought to mention something. I wonder if I did in the last episode. I can't remember. I never remember shit I said.
I know you did when the last time me and you recorded. I don't remember if you did it for this or for Dresden. I think it was this because we didn't do Dresden. Oh.
Yeah.
That was weird.
Oh, that happens a lot, guys. Well, yeah. So come to the thing that happened a week ago. By the time you hear this, but the recording will still be up, so you can attend if you just want to hang out, and it's fun. I think I talked about it somewhere else, but I stumbled on the like original website on Blogger that I made for Unspoiled, and it's like I can't make it visible to anybody, but I can see all of the posts, and it's just really wild to look at the start of it all and how like different it was, but also I'm doing a lot of things the exact same way. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It is what it is. But yeah, it's fun that I stumbled on that. Like,
yeah,
around 10 years.
You should try to figure out a way to share that with us, like
I tried to see, and it looks like maybe I can screenshot it, and maybe I can do that. Anyway, all right, guys, we're going to wrap up. It's late. Thank you so much for listening. We love you dearly. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
Joffrey, Cersei, Walder Frey, Meryn Trant, Tywin Lannister.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.